So my name is Brian Morrow. I'm the creative director for SeaWorld Parks Entertainment, and I'm serving as the creative director here at Pantopia in Falcon's Fury. And I'm going to share with you guys the stories and the legends and really the guest experience of what is Pantopia. And so Pantopia is at the heart of Busch Gardens. Literally, it is at the heart of Busch Gardens, and figuratively as well. And we knew that here in the center, our guests would pass through Pantopia up to 2 times a day as they make the loop and explore all the worlds of Busch Gardens here at Tampa. And so we wanted Pantopia to represent that central hub, or that heart of exploration. And so as guests enter Pantopia, and actually before we're standing here on that vine overpass on the other side, it will actually have our message of unlock the mysteries of the world. And that's really the message of Pantopia, where our guests will have a chance to come in, explore, and share stories of animals and cultures from around the world. Now, Pantopia is a made-up word. It doesn't really exist anywhere on the planet, and as you can tell, we're kind of moving away from these literal interpretations of environments around the planet and moving into more imaginative spaces. And we do this because it allows us to play with stories and imagination, where our guests can kind of better connect with nature, we think, through imagination and storytelling, and be a little less literal about everything that we're doing, but still be very accurate and true from the zoological standpoint. So Pantopia itself, you enter Pantopia through the key gate, which is right behind us. So this is the key gate, and it has a key master. And the key master is the original resident of Pantopia, and he arrived in very dramatic fashion via hot air balloon. And that hot air balloon is still stuck on the key gate today. And so he set up shop here, and he became the key master because he's first. He wins, right? So he controls the keys. And outside here of the actual land of Pantopia are 5 other residents that have taken up shop outside the actual land. And so these residents serve purposes related to travel. And their stories will be told through their doors into their houses, which are actually constructed out here in scenic and props. And they'll be broken up by, they're basically organized by what they do. There's a navigator. I'll show you his door inside. It's actually set up for you to see. There's a tea master who's in charge of all things tea, because tea is a very popular drink around the world. And then there's even this crazy guy that's really obsessed with elephants, because there's elephants he keeps hearing every now and then, and this herd keeps walking by his house in his backyard. I don't know where these elephants are coming from, but he collects all things elephants, and he'll be showing you all this collection on the outside of his door as well. And then once we get inside, I'll show you the next scene of Pantopia once we walk inside, and I'll take you inside the main retail merchandise space, and I'll explain the story of Akbar and how he became the main retailer of Pantopia. Good. So once you pass the key gate, the first place you'll arrive in Pantopia is the main promenade, or the main hub, which we call the transportation hub. And it is anchored by the key visual of our newest attraction, Falcon's Fury, which is really the iconic experience here in Pantopia. But from Key Gate to Falcon's Fury, this is really where travelers have come, and they just drop their stuff right here. And in Pantopia, your stories of travel, your stories of animals are the most valuable things that you have to share, and also the creation of art. So you can stay in Pantopia as long as you want, as long as you make art. And you make the art in reference to the stories of the animals from around the globe. So, for instance, if I arrived via a tuk-tuk, which somebody did, that tuk-tuk will actually be sitting right here, it sits there for about 5 minutes, and then somebody will come on top of it and start making art. And so this tuk-tuk has now become a jewelry salesperson. So he sells all things shiny and jewelry right here at the entrance. There's also the hot air balloon we mentioned before from the founding member of Pantopia. There's also a plane, and there's also a bicycle and some rickshaws. So there's all kinds of interesting ways that people arrive to Pantopia, but there is no boat, because Pantopia is quite landlocked, unfortunately, so you have to travel across the land to get here. There's no real water bodies nearby to justify arriving by a boat, unless you put wheels in the boat. So these objects will all be here, and all the influence and design of the new plaza will be based off of those transportation. So we're talking about bicycle wheels, hubcaps. There's a tile vendor truck that broke down as well, and so all the tile was spilled out here on the floor, and it was put on this wall. I'll show you the image inside. So this is a big mural of tile that was on the side of the building here. So it's all these found objects, found art, and interesting ways to repurpose, recycle, and reuse objects in a way that you would not expect them to be found. Okay? Questions?
The transportation
hub, yeah. So guests will never see a sign. That's our design influence for the zone. But you know, the key gate says Pantopia on it. But these are the names that we use to describe the building.
Will there be like an actual name for this area?
No, it's a
section of Pantopia.
So for those that know what this space used to look like, it was covered with these heavy timber awnings and beams and retail out here. So all it's been ripped out in order to provide this beautiful clear vista of the big ride in the land, and also provide lots of shaded seating. And there's a water feature as well to sort of get this out of the desert theme and get it into this rich, lush Pantopia theme, which is really important. Long gone are succulents and dirt and gravel. It's all grass and flowering trees and topiaries and bright colors and beautiful objects.
There's really like a lot of kinetic energy flowing throughout.
Yes. Yeah. Festivals around the world were really sort of the design influence for Pantopia. Big festivals like everything from Burning Man in the States to some of the tomato festivals in Spain and all kinds of other interesting things that happen in world festivals where people from around the world just come together for the purpose of celebration and unity. It's really what Pantopia is about. So you'll see a lot of unusual kinetic ideas and design happening around the space. So good? So we're going to go inside. We're going to go inside the retail venue. I'll explain all about it. So I'm going to tell you a little story about it. And so everything in Pantopia is full of story. There's actually novels and books written about the legendary Pantopia and all the residents that have come through here and lived over the past centuries and years. But this one is really interesting, and it's actually very unusual because it relates to a fellow named Akbar. And Akbar used to have this tour company down in Egypt, and it did terribly. It failed. Nobody wanted to go on these tours. Nobody was having it, right? So he shut up his tour shop, but what he did have was a gift shop down there, a bazaar, that did really, really well. So he took his retail experience, and he moved it here to Pantopia just after he shut down the tour. So he moved that store here, and how he transported the goods around was on the back of a camel. And because Akbar was this lavish, sort of fabulous character, he would often take his camel and drape his camel with various fabrics and textures and colors like this up here. And people would say, look at that camel walking around, it looks like it's painted. All right. And that painted camel really became the namesake for the store. And also, Akbar had a friend, little primate, little monkey guy that actually lived in the store with him. But he was very naughty and mischievous, so he'd often steal the keys from other Pantopians. So he was always seen running around the village with a key in his hand. So the painted camel bazaar became part of Pantopia, and you can see the actual sign right here. This painted camel. And so this is actually you're inside a painted camel bazaar, run and operated by Akbar and his associates, and it's really the central hub of retail. So when we get done talking, when you look behind you and you explore a little bit, you'll see that retail is changing shape and form and function for Busch Gardens. And we're moving out of a more standard retail into a more casual retail environment, where all the fixtures are actually found objects from around the world, recycled, repurposed, and reused. And they come from the far reaches of the globe, long gone, or the steel racks and sort of standard things you would see in retail store. It's all about eclectic items brought in together to kind of serve a purpose of unification and interest. But behind me are actually the props of Pantopia. This is some of the real props that will actually go into the project itself outside. And I'm going to walk you through some of those items and some of the images you see behind me to give you a little bit more insight on the stories and the textures and the colors. And then when we're done, you can come up and touch and move stuff into photos and look things anchored so you can have some fun. All right, so first up is the outside elevation. So these are actually real artwork. This is watercolors that we did early on in the project to describe what Pantopia could look like. But I want you to pay attention to this section right here, which is the blue section. Everything has a color story and a human story and an animal story attached to it. And the blue area obviously represents cold. So this zone was actually new construction. It's being built right now. It's additive. It's new culinary experiences. And it's actually the story of Frosty Christoulos. So Frosty was actually from the island of Mykonos, Greece, and he had a plane called Lynx Airlines. And Frosty loved to fly his plane from Greece, believe it or not, all the way to Antarctica and all the way to the Arctic. So he would often be seen with ice and fur, like big coats and all this great stuff. And his animal friend is a lynx. Well, he came through Pantopia, parked his plane in the transportation hub, and he couldn't get it started, so he cut it in half and made it a food kiosk on the side of the street. So Frosty has set up his plane fuselage tail now. They used to say Lynx Airlines, it now says, cross the airlines out, now it says Lynx Frozen Treats, and the Lynx is a reference to the animal from the Icepiration show here at Busch Gardens, Tampa. And he sells all things cold. It's snow cones and smoothies. And all the color palette is cool color palettes from the island of Mykonos, which is cobalt blues and some white and various shades of blues as well. So it's kind of a cool thing. Moving along, the color will go from cold to hot, and we have this Komodo Dragon, piece of artwork on the wall with plates that are all hot, red hot iron colored as we move into the next culinary unit, which is called Dragon Fire Grill. And I don't have a great image of Dragon Fire Grill, but it's actually located right here in his new construction on the front of the current desert grill. And this is an outdoor flame grill where our team members will be grilling food on sticks. Is a great way to describe it. And so it's a quick grab and go place to grab food on a stick. It's all kebabs. So it's vegetable kebabs, meat kebabs, all types of kebabs that'll be sold there. And it's kind of positioned as a iron workers, sort of hot metal iron swordsmith, blacksmith sort of space within Pantopia. That's who lives there. That's who operates that. All right. So moving along, this is actually the building we're in. This is Painted Camel Bazaar. And here you can see the sign, and you can see some of the influences. These rugs, for instance, that I'm standing on, are these rugs on the building. And these have a great story because we found objects for Pantopia from all over the planet, but also here, locally. And so these are American-made rugs. They are actually made out of recycled plastic and telephone wire. So they'll last really well in Florida temperatures and heat, but they look fantastic and they have a great recycling story, so we like them a lot. You'll see a lot of that throughout the whole project as well. Also keys, huge influence in design and keys for unlocking those mysteries. We like this. And then also the buildings are all jeweled and decorated, and so everything in Pantopia is lavish and anything goes. There is no right or wrong necessarily. So putting jewelry on buildings, no problem, we got it. And they're big jewelry, it's big stuff. These are some of the pieces we're starting to pull in and start building that jewelry itself. Moving behind me, these are some of the personal items and artifacts brought around the world by the travelers. You see everything, all animal influence, from recycled rugs and mats as a camel sculpture to hand-carved wooden elephants and to jewelry, all kinds of really interesting things here. But our most prized possession of Pantopia happens to be this very ordinary sack. So anybody that looks at the sack will probably think, wow, that's kind of not very exciting. But actually, we're very honored to even have this sack here. And it's a real treat because it actually belonged to the founding father, the keymaster of Pantopia. It was his ballast for his hot air balloon. And there's only one remaining, and this is it. Because it shows the original art of Pantopia is here on this bag. And it actually represents his version of the art, which represents the four corners of the globe that he had traveled in his balloon. And so he knew he wouldn't be able to fly out of here once his balloon landed and crashed on the side of the gate. So he knew he was going to set up house and shop here. And so that was his, I've done it, I've been to the four corners, and now I'm going to be at Pantopia and share those stories with everybody else around the world. So it's a great little story. So we're very lucky to have this thing here. And then the keys. So Pantopia is laden with keys. They are everywhere. They're in design. Some of these keys are 4 feet tall, some of these keys are half an inch long. So they come in every size and range because everyone wants to find their own key and unlock their own stories. And it's very easy to unlock stories in nature. You just have to look closely and take a moment. And so we want to provide those opportunities here in Pantopia for the guests to take a look and look at what appears to be an ordinary wall and understand it's telling the story of the fire island that Komodo dragons live on. And so it's that sort of deep, rich storytelling that Pantopia is legendary for, and it's full of it. Moving along, there is the influence and style board for the actual Akbar's retail space. So this shows a little bit of design process. Design process can be very neat, can be very sloppy, it can be a lot of fun, it's often very loud. But this kind of shows you the results of what we wanted this store to be. If you look closely, you'll start to see some of our, store layout plans and sort of influences for how the space will look, including final renderings up here once it's all built out and done. And then the final two here. This is the Westgate. So we entered through the key gate. This gate is located over by Congo bumper cars. There's only 2 ways in and out of Pantopia. This is the other gate, and it has the prayer flags represent species of Busch Gardens Tampa. So they're handmade flags that are being painted and dyed, and they'll be used as the shade cloth and the sort of entry moment for guests arriving the other direction into Pantopia. And then last is a great surprise, a very, very treasured piece. We have this amazing carousel here at Busch Gardens Tampa. It's one of the original attractions. It was restored recently, and it has all new LED lighting. It looks fantastic. The horses and the ride are great, but we never really took care of the canopy. So when you go outside, you'll see we're starting to paint it now, but this canopy will be gilded, painted, stenciled, adorned. It will have a valance wrapping around it and big giant drapes, as you see, and tiebacks to really make it the grand carousel that it is. And this is an important note because Falcon's Fury will attract the most extreme riders around the planet to come to ride this one-of-a-kind, tallest freestanding, face-down, first-of-its-kind attraction. It's incredible. But we want to make sure that our families and the rest of the folks that come to our park that might not want to ride that ride have things to do, and we let them have the same rich, amazing experience. And so doing the carousel is a big piece of that. The kid rides will be coming back as well, and then we have the other attractions in Pantopia.
That's
So
the top of the carousel.
that's the canopy over the canopy carousel.
And I have a quick question
Yeah.
on that too. I was just thinking through all this, and I asked before, but they said you might be better. Why Pantopia? Why the name?
Why the name? So the name really we looked through a bunch of different names, and we knew what this place was about, and we knew the story of the land. And we came up with Pantopia because it's a mix of pan, the word for earth or continent, and utopia. So it's really a place of bliss and unification. And so that's really how the name came to be.
Cool. Thank you, Seth.
And then other elements, other elements of Pantopia include the pretzel bakery, which I think you guys did that tour already. The beer garden, which we call the sitting place, which is really a quaint, cool place to sit in the shade and drink craft beers from around the world. And then also the theater called Pantopia Theater. It's where our 4D theater used to be. It's being reimagined and recreated inside as a brand new animal show called Opening Night Critters. And that show, it's basically opening night in Pantopia for this brand new show that represents animals from around the world, of all the residents of Pantopia. And it's opening night, so everything that does go wrong, everything that could go wrong, does go wrong in a very comedic way, and a very unlikely hero saves the day to produce the finale of the show for the guests. So that is basically our Critter Castaway show that used to be in the Birds Garden, moving to the indoor venue here at Pantopia. And that will actually open after Pantopia and Falcon's Fury opens. That'll open a little bit after, due to animal acclimation and the process of training animals.
Is the Critter Castaway area being repurposed?
It'll be, the park will be using it for a education and event type spaces, but not for day park guests next year, or this year. Yep.
Will there be a reference to Akbar's travels companies anywhere in the store?
There might be. It would make some sense, and actually some of the props from Akbar are coming in here. So there's a lot of beautiful ornamental metalwork and props throughout the queue and exit pathway of Akbar that are actually being removed and being brought here as well to use. And one of them is one of the doors of Pantopia. Yeah.
Will there be any animal encounters in the area?
Animal
Encounters? Any animals?
encounters. Outside the animal show, that is the only real live animal component of Pantopia.
Can you talk a little bit, is there a story to the Falcon's Fury ride? What does the structure represent, and what's the guest's role in riding it?
Well, Falcon's Fury is really like this great eclectic machine that the Pantopians built. And, you know, their art and their creations are kinetic, and they're really based on the influences of the animals. So they saw the falcons diving, that's what falcons do. So they wanted to create this machine that would replicate that experience for entertainment purposes for the residents of Pantopia and the visitors. So it really became this big important thing in the land that people started to come to as well. It's like, you know, you build these big monuments throughout history. This is a big monument for Pantopia. It's their biggest monument. And so that brings people here, like have this pilgrimage to actually come to Pantopia to experience it themselves.
Can you say anything about what the queue experience, what people are going to experience while they're waiting for the attraction?